So I'm doing this new thing. There's this idea that we allow perfectionism to stop us from doing the things that we want to do. And really the only way to be where you want to be is by trying and by I don't know if it's necessarily cringe or looking stupid or looking like a beginner, whatever the case may be. But I find that I do my best work in the morning. But also, if I do something in the morning, like record a YouTube video, then I spend so much time editing it and just worrying about the video and the script and the this and the that. And one of my goals for recording on YouTube is to also just get better at speaking and to find my voice. And this is not what this video is about. This video is actually about pivoting and how to find the spaces that allow you to pivot without as much stress as pivoting can bring. But before I get there, I do want to talk about this idea of perfectionism because I do think it ties to pivoting. And we don't start things or we stop things too early because we are afraid of failure. We're afraid of looking like beginners. And that is the cost of entry, looking like a beginner, failing and learning from that failure and moving forward. So with that, the hack that I'm doing for myself is I'm recording really late at night, at least late for me. And the idea is that by doing this and by sticking to the goal of publishing daily, I won't have the rest of the day to edit this. So before I start, I challenge you, like, what are you doing that you find ways to procrastinate? And that procrastination is couched in perfectionism, but the thing never gets out. Or you then low key wastes time putting the thing out because I forgot whose law it is, but if you will fill the time that you have to do something. So, with that said, let's get into pivoting. I was reading a newsletter from one of my favorite people on the internet, and I am blessed to also not call her my mentor. And she was talking about how the spaces that she creates for community. And the thing that she prioritizes is safety. And as I was reading it, it just dawned on me that safety is like the thing that we are chasing, and I think it's because of the way that she defined safety. And let me just pull it up so I can read it because I do think I the way she talked about it was really essential to kind of support what I'm saying. So she wrote, I took a while to figure out what was wrong in this play. Okay. So she said, somewhere along the way, people started using a word to describe this community I've been building online and off, and I hadn't been using it myself. Safe. Okay. I don't believe I can personally create safety. I don't think anyone can, but I do think you can create the conditions that make belonging easier. And to me, that's the work. Not to declare safety, but to create conditions for belonging. Once you feel you belong, you no longer have to ask yourself whether you're doing things the right way. If they like me, who is important in this group, where should I sit? If that was a stupid thing to do, whether I'm successful enough to be here or who I need to meet. Once we set those questions aside, we can recover all that energy. We can be curious, we can take risks, tell the truth, play, rest, and connect without placing ourselves within the hierarchy. There's a greater generosity because there's less competition. Instead of managing ourselves in the room, we can actually be in the room. And transparently, when I read this, I actually thought of my of an ex, and it bothers me so much that we didn't work out. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I did not feel safe with them. In that moment, I was like, oh, when I tried to explain myself and they laughed at me, when I did this and they did, I get it. And I was just like, that's what was missing. So I was like, why? But we're not here to talk about that either. But that's what initially triggered for me. I was like, oh, so where do I feel safe or how have I used safety to navigate my career? And that brought me to pivoting. I've pivoted my career 5 times. And one of the catalysts to my last pivot was getting laid off, but also just being in a company that was just not emotionally safe whatsoever. And very similar to what that thing said, I did not feel comfortable to be curious. I did not feel comfortable asking questions because I was like, oh, are you going to think I'm stupid? Are you going to judge my work now? Or are you just going to like help me understand? Right? Because that's the thing about work and life. We're all literally, especially everyone at this moment. The wonderful thing is that, yes, there's some plus and minus on either side, but we're all kind of living in this moment at the same time together. Okay. Like even if my grandmother's in her 90s, so she has way more experience than I do in life. But when we come and sit at a table and she shares so much with me, I'm also able to share something with her because the fact that you're alive on this day means that we're able to be curious. So if you're in a relationship with anyone, whether it's at work or whether a romantic relationship, and you're not allowed to be curious, you're not allowed to ask questions, you're not allowed to grow, then what is the point? Why are we here? What are we doing? Right? And the idea of being curious, taking risk, telling the truth, playing, being able to rest and connect without fear, that is also what a good workplace looks like. And how do you find that? I think when you're pivoting, the ways to find that is to go outside. Is to go outside because at work, if you have it at work, within your team, explore that. So go outside of yourself and explore that. Ask people questions. For example, when I got into the current career I'm in now, I came into the company as a trainer, meaning that my job was to train people on how to use the software. So let's say I'm recording this on Zoom right now. You're most likely watching this on YouTube. Now, granted, people can say that no one needs to teach you how to use Zoom or how to use YouTube, but humor me. Let's say you never experienced YouTube or Zoom before. My job is to come in and say, here are all the things you can do on YouTube. And quite frankly, depending on what you're using YouTube for, you might need some training, right? You might need to know how to find things properly, find what you're looking for, turn on notifications so you can see your favorite person, maybe turn on notifications for my videos. Right? Like these all are things that you can learn. And especially if you're a creator on YouTube, then it also becomes like, okay, like what are you doing to make sure that you're maximizing your reach? And there are different conversations we can have for you to use YouTube and use YouTube well for your purposes. And that is essentially what my original job was as a trainer. It's something has been built, and we need to make sure that whatever you need to do with that tool, you can do it to the best of your ability. Then over time, I was speaking to some of my coworkers, well, one coworker in particular, and I really got interested in the change management work that she was doing. And I also saw that she was a little bit overwhelmed. So I was like, okay, cool. Let me go outside of myself, outside of my job, and ask her what she needs help with. What does she do? Let me see. Let me sit out in some meetings with you. I sit in meetings as our jobs overlapped a little bit, but I want to see the full cycle. And she said, yeah, girl, come along. So I started sitting on meetings with her. So I sat on one client with her. I saw the full life cycle. The next client, I said, okay, give me the first part. Because the first part I can do, which it was mainly discoveries, like asking them questions. I have a social work background. So when we talk about pivoting, and as a social worker, your main thing is to do intakes. You have to understand what your client is going through before you can help them. So it's the same thing with change management. It's kind of the same thing with being a trainer as well. So I did that. And then I did it well. And then she kept giving me more. And eventually I was able to do the full cycle. And then I was given my own clients and on we go. So I went outside of myself. I went to her. She helped me out. I grew, etc. And then in other areas of my life, I've gone outside of myself and even outside of my team to the broader team and said, hey, this thing is happening in the company. I'm not entirely sure if I have the skill set to do it, but let me ask people how they learn to do it and what they're doing. And that was because I felt safe with them. I felt safe to ask questions. I felt safe to say, actually, I don't know, and I'm a bit overwhelmed by this. Can you help me out? I felt safe to say, I've created this thing. Is this something that I can deliver to a client? Yes or no? And that's the difference between being feeling safe at work and being able to grow at work. Because in this company, I was able to do that. In my last company, oh my gosh, I would have spent hours figuring it out by myself. 'Cause I knew if I went to my boss, if I went to anybody, I was already getting so scrutinized with my work that I knew that if I was to ask for more help, obviously they would help me. We're all here to do a job, but then I wouldn't feel great about it. So when I was looking for a new job, I looked outside of the company. So that's another thing you can do. So if you're not in a company where you can maybe move around, then the idea is to look outside. And looking outside can start with LinkedIn. It can start with like wondering what role do I now want to go into and adding those people on LinkedIn, reaching out to them on LinkedIn and having that conversation with them. And then you can even take it further and then start looking at Luma, Posh, Eventbrite. Um, who else is out there? Did I say Posh? I said Luma, Partyful. There's so many of these sites these days that host events, and there are a lot of free events, especially a lot of events that are in your niche. So what you can do is that you can start going to these things. You can start small, depending on how you are. For me, I consider myself an introvert. So if I go someplace that is net new to me, what I would do is depending on my mood that day, I will ask questions. I will research the people who are speaking in the panel. I will listen intensely and I will raise my hand and ask questions. Why? Because when you raise your hand and ask questions, I also work my job is to speak all day in front of rooms. So I don't necessarily have a fear of public speaking. So to me, even though I'm an introvert, I can raise my hand, ask a question. Everyone in the room sees me. Everyone in the room sees maybe what I'm thinking about and what I'm working on. And what that does is it starts attracting people to you. So if I don't feel like going and interrupting people's conversations or figuring that out, I can just ask some questions that I care about. So I'm already getting a reward, but also now I become a lighthouse. And then people come to me, and that's a way to start connecting with people and learning from people. Or my other strategy, usually when I go out, is that I will find one or two people and then engage with them. And usually it's because they've asked questions and I'll engage with them. But the idea here is that you're going to different spaces, and depending on the format, it could be a panel where you're asking questions, it could be small groups where they actually encourage you to talk for a lot of the time. And that's if you're feeling more social. If you are a social person, you would do that. And what that does is that it allows you to kind of test these things that I named. It allows you to test what was in this email around, are you able to feel that you belong there? Right? Are you able to get out of yourself enough to say, to not think about if they like me, to think about who's important to the group, to think about, should I sit, should I stand? If that was a stupid thing to do, if that was the right way to eat whatever. Oh my gosh, is there something in my teeth, right? Like, you don't have to think about all of that because you feel safe enough to know that even if you did have a quote unquote social faux pas, no one is going to come for you. They might just be like, girl, and call it a day, right? Are you in a space that you can be curious and when you ask questions, people are receptive to answering you? That when you take a risk by going out there, going to this event, putting yourself out there, people welcome you. And it's not to say that, like, everyone is just going to come kumbaya and whatnot, but it's to say that it's a space that gets enough room and breath for you to explore and to be comfortable and to have agency and to move in and out as needed for your own learning and your own growth. So when I think about how is someone able to pivot, how is someone able to find safety in a pivot, it starts initially, I do think, with yourself and finding safety in yourself and knowing that you are capable. I was thinking earlier about another video that I wanted to do around identity. And because of the work that I do, I deal with a lot of identity. I currently work in change management. And essentially, if I come to you and my job is to get you to use a new tool, and your identity is so entrenched in the ways that you've done stuff, you're like, no, I am a, or even right here, right? Let's say I'm a book person, right? Look, I'm reading about tomatoes. I'm a book person, right? Now, or I'm a physical book person. And I used to be this person. I used to be like, I'm a physical book person, and I would be carrying books around everywhere I went. And one day one of my bosses was like, "Girl, why are you breaking your back? Why don't you just use a Kindle?" And I was like, "No, I'm a person." And then I'm not actually sure what happened. I think maybe one day I just said, "You know what? Let's try an audiobook." So we did. Because I listen to podcasts a lot. So I think at some point I was like, what's the difference between a podcast and that? So I grabbed actually, I think it's when I lived in Minnesota, I think. I think, like, I was just walking a lot, and because I was no longer living in, like, New York City proper where there was just so much going on, or maybe that's not true. Girl, I don't know. But I do think it was post-pandemic, though, because during the pandemic, I was still very, like, physical book heavy, but post-pandemic I stopped lis that's what it was. I stopped listening to podcasts so much because I wasn't commuting as much, but when I started walking, I was like, "Well, I want something, and I don't always want a podcast," so that's what it was. So, I changed my identity from a person who reads physical books, a person who listens to audiobooks, but the through line was that I'm a reader, and this is important because, like I said, in my job is to convince people that their identity is core. Like, you are a good person. You are a person who pays attention to detail. So even though in your imagination right now, and when I say imagination, it's like the way that you see things right now is writing everything down, and that's how you pay attention to detail. You can also pay attention to detail by using this technology, and you will actually be able to do your work and do it better. So the identity of you being a detail oriented person is still the same, but what is changing is the way that you're able to pay attention to detail. I'm a reader. That is always going to be true about me. But does it matter if I'm reading a physical copy of a book? Does it matter if I'm listening to the Libby, the audiobook? I don't know where my Kindle is, or does it matter if I'm reading on my Kindle? No, I am still reading. I am still interacting with the new world. I am still learning about characters, and I'm still putting myself outside of myself. Again, we just said outside of myself. I'm putting myself outside of myself to experience another perspective. And when it comes to pivoting, is the same thing. You have core identities about you. Let's say you are a nurse. One of your core identities might be that you really enjoy taking care of people and you want to be part of the process of seeing people get well. Or a core identity can be you deeply believe in science and medicine, and you believe that using medicine well and responsibly it's great to get people to where they need to be. Now, you having this identity does not mean that you can't go from being a nurse to working in a pharmaceutical company, right? You might not be frontline anymore, but if your core identity was around the power of medicine because you saw maybe when you were growing up how someone took this medicine and it really changed how they were able to live their life and navigate, like, you saw how maybe someone had asthma, but by having access to an asthma pump, it changed your life, then having that identity will serve you well as a nurse, a frontline nurse, but also as someone who works maybe in a health tech. You understand? So when I hear people struggling with pivoting, rather than holding on to the title of what you are, what I'm asking is for people to hold on to their through line. Because when you hold on to your through line, if we go back to the idea of how do you start pivoting, how do you start talking to people, when you reach out to other people and say, "Hey, I want to pivot to this," you bring that through line with you. When you reach outside of yourself and you say, "Hey, I'm really good at interviewing people, and I notice that this job has this component to it. Do you mind if I take a stab at it?" And they might say yes, and then you can start from there and then explore the rest. When you go to different events, whether it's again conferences or more smaller groups, that's your through line. Oh, I love how this profession does X, Y, Z. I just come alive when I'm able to talk to other people and learn from them. I just come alive when I'm able to see how a specific medicine has changed someone's life for the better. And that if that lights you up and that's really cool to you, then that is your through line and that is where you can now engage with people. So, I say all this to say this email this morning really just touched me in a very personal way, but then also in a professional way, because I think it helped me really understand how we're able to navigate through this world and how we're able to pivot and change and grow. And right now, there's so much change that is happening in the world that we live in, so, so much. And there's so much change that's happening in the world we live in. And I think, oh, there we go. And I think the way to navigate one aspect of it, which is our career, as we pivot into something new, is to really be intentional about, you know, what am I bringing? So, yeah, those are my thoughts for the day. And I think I mentioned at the beginning of this, one of my goals is to post regularly, daily on YouTube. And I want to get outside of this idea. I actually want to remove myself from this idea of perfectionism, of this identity of perfectionism, because quite frankly, I don't even think any of my YouTube videos I've posted so far are quote unquote perfect by long mile, but I'm also like low key wasting time by trying to make it perfect. And I will actually even bet that by trying to make it so perfect, I'm actually hurting it because rather than just talking, I'm now like writing a script and then I'm editing the script and then I'm going to descript to delete all these things. Like I'm just going to post this video. So I apologize if there's a lot of ums and likes in here. And that's where the perfectionism is coming in. But I want to lean into at least for the next few videos just talking and seeing what I learn about myself, my voice from talking. And this is the last thing I'll say. It's a bit of a tangent, but in the world of AI, finding your voice and knowing your voice like so well is the thing that's going to differentiate folks. So I want to get really comfortable for I talk a lot for a living, but before I go talk, like I prep, right? Like I have time to sit and think through what am I saying to you? What am I presenting to you is very contained. But I want to get better at just being like, hey, off the cuff, can I just talk, right? And I haven't read this book yet, but I have this book that I will get to. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. And it's really about how do you articulate your thoughts better. And and I want to get better at it. So after I finish reading about tomatoes, I gotta read about this. And I just want to be better. And I think that's why this email got to me so much because I really believe in growth and learning and you can only really do that through safety. So I'm creating safety for myself here and I'm saying that I'm going to show up imperfectly. And I'm grateful for you for coming on this journey with me because through that, we can learn and grow together and create safety for each other. And what a wonderful world that we can create if we're curious about each other. Like, why did you watch this video to this moment if you did? I want to know. So let me leave a comment. I think you can DM on YouTube now. So like DM, right? Why did you do that? Take risk. I'm taking a risk. I am posting this thing. No edits, right? Super late at night. I'm gonna post it anyway. And I'm telling the truth. And I'm playing. I'm going to after this, I'm gonna go brush my teeth. I'm gonna go to bed because rest is also important. All right, I will talk to y'all, talk to myself, whatever, tomorrow.